Hello, my name is Dylan Anderson. I work for CodaBears. I've been working with CodaBears for about 3 years now. I've been an Epicor user for about 6 years. Prior to CodaBears, I worked with a boat manufacturer, and they used E9. And then I came to CodaBears and learned Vantage 8, as well as Epicor 10. So it's been a fun adventure so far. And it's been really exciting on the consultancy side to kind of see, Epicor um, evolve into, Kinetic. I like Kinetic. I like where they're going with it. It definitely, has its pros and cons. And I know there's a lot of mixed emotions out there, but hopefully, I show you guys something cool today, and kind of make you a little bit more comfortable. So, yep, today we're going to talk about the Kinetic Application Studio in Epicor. And some of the things that we're going to go over here is converting classic customizations to Kinetic, as well as disabling and enabling those Kinetic forms using menu maintenance. Some of those users that have jumped to 10.2.700 has probably seen a little bit of the suggestion, hey, do you want to snooze or do you want to view the Kinetic screen of sales order entry or quote entry? And sometimes that pops up and users get stuck in it and they get a little confused on why did my whole interface change? Well, maybe they're not yet used to Kinetic, because that hasn't been quite rolled out in your organization yet. So we'll talk about how to disable that, and we're also going to talk about creating a Kinetic menu item inside of menu maintenance and how to kind of assign those layers like you assign customizations to your classic WinForms windows. And then we're going to have a little bit of a demo at the end where we'll go into the Kinetic Application Studio and create our Kinetic layer with a UD field, and I'll show you how that's done. So first, for those of you that don't know or have not yet upgraded to the new Kinetic 2021, once you do upgrade from a Epicor 10 version to the Kinetic 2021, all of your classic customizations will automatically convert into a Kinetic layer as part of the upgrade process. Your classic customizations will still be there. You'll just have a kind of replica of that classic customization for Kinetic for you to, view to see how it came over. And hopefully, that eases up some of the, conversion process. Of course, I think it's safe to expect that you're going to probably have to touch all of these, converted Kinetic screens because they're kind of going into more of a no code space where, in the Kinetic Application Studio on the interface, you're not really writing code directly into that interface. Instead, your code's being stored into Epicor functions, which we'll have a presentation of that later around 1 o'clock today. And just so you know, you can rerun the conversion on demand anytime you want, even after the upgrade to Kinetic 2021 using the conversion workbench. The conversion number is labeled 180, and you'll see, kind of that portion there, my first screenshot here in this slide. And there's a couple of reasons why you might want to rerun that. Maybe, you applied a new patch that might have, a change into their conversion process. So you might want to rerun that on demand, after you've applied that patch, and because by then you'd probably already be on Kinetic 2021, and you want, it to redeploy those classic customizations, converting them into Kinetic layers. Just to, kind of point out, the conversion program 180 does not overwrite existing Kinetic layers. So if you did do an upgrade and it created that Kinetic layer version of your classic customization, if you rerun 180, it will likely create a duplicate. It is suggested in what I found in the help documents of the Kinetic Epicor, help, is to delete the existing or the layers so that you don't have duplicates when rerunning the conversion program. And then also, once you do run that conversion program and after your upgrade, in the configuration upgrade dashboard, there under that classic customizations and personalizations tab, you'll notice there is a not converted to kinetic sub tab under there, and that's in my second screenshot there. And you'll see, you'll see what passed, what converted successfully, what had errors and what had issues, and you'll be able to use that tab to kind of see, what failed, and then you'll be able to look at those classic customizations as to why. Now, just to point out, upgrading to Kinetic 2021, you're not forced to use the Kinetic screens. You can still use all of your classic menus, even though they do kind of create that Kinetic, layer of all your classic customization. That's just, kind of in preparation for when you decide to go to Kinetic in the future. And then that kind of brings me into my next topic here on disabling and enabling the Kinetic menus inside of menu maintenance. So one of the forms to use option down here at the bottom of that image there, you'll see there is a new forms to use drop-down menu, and the options available within this drop-down menu is user choice, kinetic, and classic. So if you set the drop-down to user choice, basically it'll be, user login specific. They can actually, I think, change their settings to show that particular user if they choose to work only in kinetic screens. So that's kind of giving them the choice. It's not, IT controlled or admin controlled, but if you change that menu, if you change those menu items to anything like, kinetic or classic, you'll either be enforcing the kinetic or classic menu items for all of your users. So if a user, tends to get stuck and you guys aren't ready to, introduce the new Kinetic UI, be sure to go through, your menus and set those forms to use to be classic as well. That will, free up a little bit of the headaches and IT support tickets that might come in if, you're new to Kinetic 2021 and even actually 10.2.700, and, they're getting these suggestions and they're accidentally clicking on that little link to view the Kinetic form. But, this just shows you that when you do decide to go and upgrade to Kinetic 2021, you can still use your classic forms, and then slowly, as IT and programming's busy, converting, your sales order entry customization to a Kinetic sales order entry customization, you can actually enable each form at a time and slowly roll out, your Kinetic screens until you guys are fully Kinetic, rather than, so this isn't an upgrade where, oh my gosh, IT has to rewrite every single customization. No, they can upgrade, use the classic forms for a while. Yeah, within the upgrade process, there's things that are going to have to be fixed even in the classic customization sometimes, depending on how complex your items are. But just know that, you're not doing a full rewrite of everything or a redo of the entire layout. So, in menu maintenance, also wanted to point out, yeah, there's a form to use on that user choice for a standard, program type. So when that is the scenario, the default program type, if I go back a slide here, the default program type is, called menu item. And that was used, since, forever in Epicor 9 and 10, I know for sure. It gave you that customization drop down, and in that image, you'll see that customization is not a button, but if I result back to my other slide here, you'll see that customization becomes a button when you check the program type Kinetic app. And the reason why that's, significant here is your menu item has to be a program type of Kinetic app. You have to select your program. In this case, in my example here in the image, I selected the sales order entry UI screen, which, is a Kinetic app. And then it let me click on that customization as a button rather than a label. And the reason why that is important, because once you're using the Application Studio and creating your Kinetic customizations, aka layers, Kinetic layers, you'll be able to click on that button, and you'll see in my second image to the right here in the slide that, you'll see on the left your column of available customizations, and then on the right, your selected customizations, and you can actually modify that order and pick the layers that you want to make active to the user that is accessing that menu item. Cool thing about layers, and I've been playing around with them a little bit, is, a layer, think of a layer as, a customization, in Classic. Let's say, you have 4 customizations in Classic. The cool thing about layers is that you can create one layer that has a new tab or a new section entirely inside of Kinetic, that might not be in so layer one might not have the same controls as layer two, but if you make them both active, basically they'll kind of self merge into the user's eyes, and they'll see both of the components that you created in both of each of those layers. So I think that is really cool, especially when to rolling out new features, and that kind of solves uh, a big somewhat of a headache that might have occurred when you have kind of a big programming or a big IT department that is both in the system, has both hands in the system, might be working on the same screen, creating customization, and they're having to, take the XML of the customizations and trying to merge them. So that, this kind of simplifies, merging your customization, merging your customizations together, and kind of, helps you guys even, take away and have more control and access over the features that you're creating. So now we'll jump into our demo here. So I'm going to close out of my PowerPoint presentation. And here we have Kinetic 2021 here, and I'll go to the menu, and we're going to go ahead and open up the Application Studio. I know in Epicor 9 and Vantage, we didn't have the search here to be able to search on the menus, and I mean, I've personally become reliant on it, and I search for everything now. So we'll jump into the Application Studio here. And there's kind of two ways to create a kinetic customization. You could go through the Application Studio like I am now, or you can actually go to that screen. As long as it is either user choice or kinetic enabled, you can go into that screen, and then there will be three dots in the upper right hand corner to be able to open particularly that screen in the Application Studio. But I do like using the Application Studio menu item because I'm able to jump around multiple screens and have flexibility that way. So you'll notice when it first comes up, there's not really a search box or anything here, but it does have a filter option. So if you actually click this filter option, you'll be able to add your group bys, and then you'll actually be able to search each individual column here, which is pretty neat. So I'm going to type erp.ui. Most of your menu items are probably going to start with erp.ui. Unless if it's like I think a UD menu starts with ice.ui. But so erp.ui for the sales order entry, and if I click this little plus here, in this first column, you'll be able to see all the layers that are created under there. Now, this is continuously being improved. As Kinetic is being supported, patches are coming out, so they might add new things to the screen, and I'm not too sure what patch level this environment's on currently, but you should still have this pencil icon here next to the sales order entry screen. I'm going to go ahead and click that. When I click that pencil icon, it brings me into this editor application map here. And then one thing I want to point out here to the top right-hand screen, so you have a few navigational tools here, as well as able to preview your sort of say customization layer, to save your customization layer, and then you have these three little dots here to exit, publish, and you can search the application or close all editors. So some tools there. One thing I do want to point out is anytime that you're making a new layer or want to make a new layer, make sure that this little link here says your new layer, just like it is here. If you want to edit an existing layer, you can actually click on this little blue link and select change layer, and then you'll be able to edit one of your existing layers or even delete one of your existing layers, as well as merge if you want. And if it didn't say new layer, you would follow these same clicks, but here under change layer, you would just click create layer, and that should put you into this new layer mode here. So for this example, here on the application map, you'll kind of see, so this is kind of the entire workflow of the UI. So, it starts at sales orders. So where they're searching, for their sales order or selecting a sales order, then they're going to go to the order screen. And then on that order screen, there's going to be some details about their order, who it's shipped to, sold to, so on, just like you see it in the classic interface. And then, you'll have your lines and your detail screen as well. So that's just kind of to sum up a little bit of the workflow. And then over here, you have your slide out panel. So these little things that pop up, like when you're creating a new part within the screen, or if it's a serial track part, and so on. So you can pretty much, customize every detail of this, as well as, kind of add in your own flows into here. But for this example, we won't be getting into that. Hopefully in future EUGs we will. And then on the left hand here, just kind of wanna, because this is very simple, and I think it's a rather, becoming a rather intuitive application studio. I've definitely seen some changes between 10.2.700 and Kinetic, and I definitely like, how they're improving it just, between those two versions. Because in 10.2.700, I didn't really know what I was looking at, but in Kinetic, it's definitely made a lot more sense. So if I click on this layout button here, again, you're going to kind of see the same thing a little bit about those application maps, and you can actually pick these right out of here to kind of, modify them or customize them. And then you have your data rules here. So these are, essentially what you're going to see in here is all the data rules that the sales order entry screen is already using natively. Because this is a new layer, there's nothing added into here currently, and you can actually click on these rules and add on to these rules. So like if you created a function with some custom code and you wanted to tap into, after the price is locked, and you want to call a function to, perform maybe, I don't know, a message box to a user, or a function that will, send an email or something like that, you can click on and add to these rules workflows. Which, just to kind of show you, so this is a little bit of that part locked rule. It's got conditions and actions, so kind of like, what BPMs look like a little bit, and you can actually, add your own actions here, and so on. So events also, pretty cool. So these are, again, a lot of the Epicor, native events here, which I think, personally, you have more control over, tapping into the base or the system, defined events and components in the application studio than you did, in classic, WinForms or classic Epicor. So just another thing that, kind of has me excited here. So like all your on-click events, so users clicking the credit card sale action. I mean, you can tap into that, add your own function, Epicor function into this guy as well, and so on. So I'm just kind of going a little bit over the interface here, just to kind of get you guys hopefully a little excited about what is kind of capable of, the application studio and what you can kind of tap in here. So another thing here is data views. So these are, again, so this is like your epi data views. So these are all your all the data that's kind of available readily for the sales order entry screen. And then here is publish history. So publish history. Since this is a new layer, we have no records available, but if this was an existing layer that we were modifying, you would see all the amount of times that, the developer or your IT has published that, layer of customization. And, there'll be by the user, publish date, time, and then a little bit of description about that publish. So that's to kind of see the history. Okay, so that's a little bit about the interface, and as you can see, each time I click on things, it leaves like little tabs open, so you can kind of jump around, and just makes navigation of the whole application studio very a lot smoother. So for today's demo, we're going to actually create a layer on the, and we're going to basically, what we're going to do is we're going to edit this detail, the detail tab here, so the line detail tab, and we're going to add onto that tab a UD column. Now, prior to this demo, I've already gone ahead and regenerated in my data model. I added a UD field on the order detail table that we're going to use for this demo. So the way I like to use the Application Studio and navigate into editing one of the tabs is basically this application map. I just think it's very intuitive. So if I click on my detail little box here, you'll see that I get a few options like add, delete, and then edit, symboled by a pencil. So if I click on that little pencil here, it'll take me to a new tab that looks just like the line detail tab. Now you'll notice in here, and this is one of the cool things about Kinetic as well, is this is all native stuff. So Epicore's already built all this into here, and on this customization layer, I can actually hide and delete things. So if I click this, click on the contract renewal, let's say, I want to minimize the sales order entry interface, so that I only want to display fields that my company or my organization actually uses. You can, with the application studio and the customization layers, you can actually do that very easily. You could just delete the whole section out, just like I did there, and it took that card right out of there. Now, when we publish this and make this active on the menu item, the users aren't going to actually see that contract section on that details tab. So again, it even makes hiding things that you don't necessarily use or that apply to your organization. And I think our last session was talking about onboarding. I think that helps simplify a little bit of the onboarding process as well when the screen isn't as busy. So we're going to go ahead and start adding our UD field here. So the first thing I like to do, so as you see in the right hand, there's a whole toolbox here. So kind of like the toolbox you had in that classic screen when you went into customization mode, and then tools toolbox. You can drag different items into here. The first thing I always like to drag is the one column or the two column, depending on what customization you're doing here. And the reason why is because I kind of like to stick with Epicore's practice here. As you can see here, like reference, it's in a little box, and what this box is it's a column. So just like I created here, it's another column. So now you can actually click on that column and go to properties, and so every little component here actually has their own properties, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with that. So one of the things here is label text. It's blank. As you see, all these other ones have label text. So usually I'll give it a label text just to follow the same practice, because I'm not reconstructing, the entire Epicore interface here. I might, hide some things and add some things, but I kind of want to keep that same consistency and workflow in the UI that Epicore's already put their work into, just to make the end user, more comfortable with the way, everything kind of looks here. So I've put on my properties here, I've put my label text. So now I typed my UD field in that label text, and you'll see here, just like on the reference, there's my label. I'll click on Toolbox again, and let's say to this little column here, I want to add in a text box. So there's a nifty little search here, and you can type text. So there's text area and text box. Text area, I think, is more like a label. It's very simple, but we'll drag the text box into our column. Now it is a little tricky, but again, it's new, and I think if you click on the help here, you can actually get feedback, and they're continuously improving this. So I've added my text box, and now I'll select on that text box component and then do the same thing I just did with that column. I'll click on properties. And then, I like to erase the label because I don't want to see text box -1, just like I've always done that in the classic customization editor as well. So I'll remove that label, and then I'm going to go ahead and expand data. And now basically data here, so this is my epi binding property. So again, if you're used to making customizations and adding fields, we have an epi binding property here in the Kinetic screen, just like we did in the classic. But this one, I think before it used to be a drop down, but now you can actually type it into here. So order details, my table, and then dot. So I'm going to bind it to emug text _c. So that's my UD field that I created for this demo. And so now that binding's here, I've added my field, and I've deleted one thing. There might be other things here that don't apply to my organization. I'll probably go in and delete the rest of those. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and click Save All. And I would recommend periodically saving as you're adding controls, because you never know, your computer can reboot for Windows updates or something, and you lose all your work. So always periodically save as you're customizing in Epicore. So I'm going to give my layer name. I'm just going to say emug 2021. This is my test layer. I'll just give it a little bit of description. I'll let it work with all companies, and then device type. I'll do any device. So cool thing again about using Kinetic. If you guys are Epicor mobile access or Epicor web access users, Kinetic is the current classic smart client interface as well as the web access, and it also does very well on a mobile device. So I'll click save here on my layer. Now that I've given a description, I'm not too sure why I'm getting that error, but I probably just have to reboot my Epicor. But anyway, you'll see here that I have emug 2021 as my layer selected, and I can continue making changes here if I want. I can also kind of click on this little drop down here in this toolbar and see what it looks like, what it would look like kind of like on an iPad or mobile device. So that way you're kind of aware of what you might be editing or adding here, making sure that your labels are rather short, so that they conform well on a mobile device scale and so on. So now up here in the top right, I'm going to click on this little preview button here, and this is kind of like debugging or testing your layer. I'm going to save that. Okay, I'm going to close out and reopen. Is when I tested this or prepared for this, that error definitely did not happen once. Click edit. I'm going to change to my layer. It didn't save my layer. Darn. Well, that's okay because I prepared in case this happened. So details UD is that same thing. So I click that little play button again. So we're in the test debug mode. And then I'm going to select the order 5400. And again, because Kinetic, it's continuously being improved since it's so new. That's also why I recommend periodically saving. Because clearly my stuff did not save. So here, details. So here's my Kinetic UD field. I actually deleted that little, same thing as before. I deleted that little contracts, and then I actually put some data in my UD field to make sure it worked. So if I did, hello world inside my UD field, I can actually save this onto the sales order line, and that'll actually save there. So yeah, so I mean that's kind of a basic introduction to that application studio. Again, it's so new, but it's being improved. I think with each patch level and so on. And as you see, you're going to see that application studio get more, I think, advanced and have a lot more options. Even though it definitely has a lot of punch currently. Just between seeing from what happened between 10.2.700 to Kinetic 2021, it's been exciting. So I'm going to jump back to my little presentation here. So again, I know I touched base on some of this a little bit during the demo, but some cool things that I just wanted to again stress and point out about the Application Studio is you have the ability now to easily, well, more easier than I think you did in Kinetic, I mean in Classic, menu items is to tap directly into Epicor native controls and rules. You can add your functions and add things to those workflows within that Application Studio if you do choose to play in those sections. And then you have the ability to hide unused native components. So, just like I showed you in the demo, layers, layers, and more layers. So, you can have an infinite number of those layers that might each contain a different feature that you're adding into the screen, to the native Kinetic screen. And you can, like in menu maintenance, you can, take away that functionality or re-add it. Maybe it's not something you're using. You can take it out, you can delete it, and so on. The layers, give you that flexibility to kind of, revert back or add things that, you guys might not be using or might want to introduce at a later time. Who knows? No programming knowledge necessary. That's one thing I wanted to put out here because I think a lot of non-programmers that when they opened up the Classic screen, one of the first things that pops up is the properties. the wizards, and then the script editor tab. And and then you have to go to the toolbox and find that and drag and drop the fields. I just think that's a little bit less intuitive, and they had a more of an intuitive path to help those IT folks, or even people that are encouraged to go and modify their own screens. It definitely makes it easier for those users to help IT out, those power users in the organization, to help IT out in designing or removing the functionality of the screens that they're not using. So you don't need any programming necessary. A lot of what so far to work in Kinetic, if you want to add custom code, that kind of results back into Epicor functions. You're able to call a function from the Kinetic screens and adding those via the Application Studio. So you still have programming ability there, but it is definitely more intuitive for those that might not have that programming knowledge. And then the last thing, is it's a cross-platform. It's web-based. A lot of companies out there, a lot of ERP systems are already web-based. Salesforce is web-based. If you use that, and you have that integrated with Epicor, so Epicor is going, or with Kinetic, Epicor is going, Kinetic Epicor, whatever, is going to this, web-based platform. So with that, you're getting your mobile, interaction. So whether you're calling a URL via Safari on your iPad or your iPhone, you're now able to kind of do a lot more of those interactions with your Epicor system, no matter where you are. So, and then, at some point, if there's Mac users in your company, I mean, this makes it easier for them. They don't have to run a virtual machine with, Epicor on it. They can essentially, even the Application Studio, it works in a web browser. There's a URL out there in the help documentation of Kinetic to, help you get to the Kinetic via application via a URL, and you'll be able to, customize through that URL. So you're getting that cross-platform benefit, and so on. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and leave the rest of the time here for a little bit of a stretch break and questions if you guys have any.
There's a question from Nancy Hoyt. Does user choice for the menus, does user choice mean that I now have two customizations, non-kinetic and kinetic, to maintain?
Right. So user choice, I mean, if you have no kinetic, customizations currently, or let's say you do and they don't really work, I would kind of refer you to set that to be classic, because users are going to be able to right click on the screen and go to options and say, hey, I want to see the kinetic, or click on that little tip that says, hey, would you like to try the kinetic version of the screen? So user choice, yeah, I mean, essentially, it's what's in your classic customizations. Even though we have the conversion that's going to convert, them and create a kinetic layer, until you touch those and vet those that they're working like your classic ones, it's going to be safe to kind of direct that menu item to be either classic or kinetic. I don't see a huge use case for the user choice, but unless if you're a developer or something like that, or an IT administrator at your organization.
Okay. If a menu item is user choice and it's a Kinetic app, how do I select the customization on the classic form? If it's a Kinetic app, you're not going to have the choice of a customization, are you?
Right. So if it's a Kinetic app, you won't be able to it's no longer a customization drop-down box. You're not selecting an existing. It becomes a customization button where you have to select the layers. So if it's user choice, you don't even actually have now that I think about it, if it's a user choice on a normal menu item, if it's a Kinetic app, it defaults to the Kinetic form to use. Like, you can't even change that to be user choice. So if it's a classic menu item, just a menu item, then it's going to be that classic screen, or it's going to be the native Kinetic screen without any layers applied to it, if that makes sense.
Yep. And I think Graham Ross is asking the same thing. When a menu option is set to user choice and a Kinetic layer is selected, can you also have a classic customization set for the option at the same time? So it is a little bit different question, sorry. So if you've got user choice and your application, that menu item is both kinetic and classic, can you have a classic customization set as well?
If it's a user choice and the menu type is labeled menu item, not Kinetic app, you can set your classic customization for that menu. They'll be able to see that native Kinetic screen, though if they do choose to. But that won't have any of your customizations applied to that Kinetic screen.
Okay. From Heather Hahn, I got interrupted, so I might have missed this. If you add a new UD column to a form and Epicor adds a new column in that same location to the base form in an upgrade, how will you know that Epicor added a new column to the new form? And how can you add your UD column to the new base form?
So I mean that's kind of going with their intuitive in thinking forward mindset at Epicor. I mean the developers. So I don't know if you saw in that application studio here, but I'll pop it open real quick here and I'll close out a preview. So by the way, this is how you close out a preview if you're debugging a form. I'll click back on my details. So just so you know, like when I drag and drop something here, or even something existing, I can move this around. So if Epicor actually added a field, it'll either push your little column or your controls components down from where they added it. So you might come here and just have to move it, but unlike the classic screen, it would just cover your field. Or like if they added a group box to a new update, and then your classic customization upgraded. Now you can't find your field because it's behind theirs. Here, I mean, things are a little bit, when they're adding fields, it's not going to cover your field. It's just going to move your components downwards or upwards. Just kind of like this. I mean, it's not going to do something that drastic, but if they added something in here, just like if I delete this is the same thing as them deleting their group box. My Kinetic UD field just moves up. If they add it here, mine will just move down.
Awesome. All right. Mike Mullaney, are there personalization options for the user, or is everything done in customization?
To be honest, I have to get back to you on that because I have not played with the personalization option. But I think there is personalization
yes,
option.
There is personalization. The personalization basically allows you to hide fields, to change the layout of your grid view, just like before.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim.
It's very easy to do. In fact, it's almost too intuitive. Go in there, choose personalization, and then you can click on things and say hide these. So if you don't want to see something, you hide it, and it's gone.
Awesome.
Range.
Which that kind of dips back into that onboarding process. I mean, that's why I don't really like messing with personalizations. I don't really tell a lot of people about them personally because their screens look different than what I'm used to seeing, and then it's like, I gotta help you, but I'm like, where's this field that I and so on. So it just gets fun at that point once personalizations are involved. But they're definitely helpful, especially in the grids, column order and exporting your data the way that you want it. That is where I find the most use of personalizations for sure.
And this is where when you're talking about a big organization with 20 order entry people, personalizations may not be the right answer. It's you need one customization that rearranges things the way that everybody works. But in a smaller organization where you have one order entry person and one AP person, one AR person, let them personalize it. It's like, hey, they want to go do it. That way it takes the load off of the developers to have to customize every single form.
For sure.
All right, Mike's got a follow-up question. After you remove a field from a screen, how do you add it back in?
Find it and put it back on.
I think that's the unhide button that's on your screen there, right?
Good question.
Well,
I thought.
I don't think I've ever gone backwards yet. I mean, honestly, I've deleted the layer and that brought it back or created a new layer.
I thought on a previous user group session they showed going back into the tree, and then you can click on a hidden item and say unhide. But I could be remembering incorrectly. Tim, do you know right off?
I do not know right off, but I would say either that or just go back and add it. Find it
Yeah.
and drag it in.
You can definitely re-add it for sure manually without a doubt as well. So yeah, I actually I don't think I've ever gone backwards, but if I'll look into this and shoot you an email if I find that.
That's what's nice about personalization, and maybe if you get out of developer mode and then go into personalization, you can see how that works. It's so easy to hide and unhide things.
And we've got some feedback. Wayne, you deleted it versus hiding it. And Roy says, I think if you delete it from the form, you have to re-add it. Whereas if you hit it, you can unhide it. That my mistake on both of those.
Correct. That makes sense.
So
yeah, I mean, if it's something, hiding's probably the best route for sure.
Yeah.
Rather than deleting it. But you can get it back if you delete your layer. I've actually created a layer and deleted everything I wanted, and then that was unique to that layer. Like I didn't add any controls using that layer. I would create a second layer with my controls, and then I would actually just remove that one layer out of using menu maintenance, and then I was able to all those native fields would appear back up. So that's there's a few ways to skin the cat here for sure.
Any other questions? If you got some questions, and even if you've got Stump the Chump questions for later, just go ahead and type them in the questions area. We've got a few more minutes left with Dylan. Otherwise, if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and start lunch early, I guess. And our next session is at noon for job scheduling with Tim. Tim, you just get to speak up all the time here. I'll hang out for a few more minutes just in case there are any other questions on Dylan's presentation.
I was just going to show it.
Personalization. So if you click on that, you can see how easy it is. So you're on that personalize. You can go into there. You can just click the little switches and turn things on and off. But go into the next screen where you go into personalize. So go into order. And this is where it really becomes evident. So now you've got all your cards below, but go into personalization and you can turn on and off cards here. You can turn on and off fields within the cards. There's the whole card. So you can just say, hey, I don't want to see the commissions tab, for example. The commissions card, you could turn it off. The groups within that, down there, the commissions or tax, you don't use those features, turn them off. And they just disappear off the screen then. Or you can turn off individual fields within the card. Commissions no longer show.
Sweet.
So that personalization is very easy and it's like, if you're in an organization, you go, man, I just don't want to see these tabs. I never use them. Just go hide them. Done.
And then how do you export a personalization? How do you export it to share with other users?
I believe the same way as before, you can go into Solution Manager and go select it and copy it to others. I've never done that before.
And a question from Mark. Did someone explain the new Epicor version numbers? For example, is 2021.1.x spring and 2021.2.x the fall?
That's correct. That's it. 1 is spring, 2 is fall. And that's pretty much across all the products. We're trying to get to a 2 major release cadence per year. And the reason is because when you start talking about Epicor Commerce Connect and Kinetic, which are both Epicor products, and they have to be in sync with each other. So that way we can make sure that we know what we're talking about. We don't have to start talking about, well, you need version Y of this to be compatible with version Z of that. It's just too confusing.
One last one from Heather Hahn. In personalization maintenance or customization maintenance, I'm assuming there will be a way to identify which ones are for classic and which ones are for kinetic. Is that correct?
Yep, there's like if you're using Solution Workbench, you can export and import, it's just a different, like one's called customization, I think the other one's called kinetic layer inside of Solution Workbench, so you can actually select kinetic layers instead of classic. So that is how they kind of differ there.
All right. One final one from George Berg. We're on 10.2.700.5. I can open Application Studio, but the edit button does not launch anything. Do you need to be on Kinetic in order to be able to edit layers?
I would personally say that Kinetic 2021 is so far, a better version of the Application Studio. And it's kind of what I've chosen to also get used to and kind of start pushing, because it's definitely, a lot more work at that point has been put into it. I mean, 10.2.500, I don't even think they've converted all the screens in there. And then 10.2.700 is definitely a better implementation of it. But once I saw Kinetic 2021, it's definitely a lot more solid. So, yeah, you're gonna have mixed behavior until you kind of upgrade here based on it's gonna behave differently for me based on what I showed because of how far it's come.
Yep. Version 10, the App Studio was almost get up to the 20.1.
Right, 10.2.500 was kind of the introduction to more kinetic screens. 600 was more. 700, they added the App Studio so that you could open and look, but you couldn't necessarily save or modify it. It wasn't fully working. And some of the kinetic screens were written in 500 or 600, which weren't updated for what was done in 700. So I would say wait until 2021 to get your feet wet more with Studio.
All right. I think that gets all of our questions answered. Thank you much, Dylan, and we'll see you again with Epicor Functions after Tim's job scheduling. All right, everybody, this is our break for lunch. So we will see you back at noon for job scheduling with Tim Shoemaker from Epicor.